Hey Mustangs, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the nitrogen cycle. Super simplified, of course. So with the nitrogen cycle, there's two abiotic areas of the environment, of the ecosystem, that are very important as part of the nitrogen cycle. So let's go ahead and start and take a look. So the atmosphere is where we're going to start with the nitrogen cycle. And nitrogen exists in the atmosphere in the form of nitrogen gas, N2, two nitrogens together. We're also going to come down here and draw a line like this to represent the soil. Okay. So the soil is also going to play a huge part in the nitrogen cycle. So nitrogen in the form of nitrogen gas is useless to living things. About 78% of the gases in the atmosphere is actually nitrogen gas. And you can breathe in as much nitrogen gas as you want, but your body can't use nitrogen in the form of gas. It can't incorporate it into other molecules in that form. So there's tons of nitrogen gas all around us, but it's actually useless to us in the form of nitrogen gas. So from here, one major way that nitrogen gas can become available to living things is through nitrogen fixing bacteria. So here's some bacteria, and they go through the process of nitrogen fixation. And what they do is they take the nitrogen gas in the form of N2 and they're going to add some hydrogens to it. Okay? And they convert it to NH3, which is ammonia. Now, still, ammonia is not what living things look for in order to get their nitrogen. So there's another group of bacteria, put it this way, that we call nitrifying bacteria. And they are going to take the NH3 and they're going to convert it into nitrates and nitrites. Okay, so nitrites are NO2 negative. So there's your nitrites. Put that over here. NO2 negative, nitrites. And nitrates, NO3 negative. So NO3 negative is your nitrates. Okay, so nitrates, this is what living things want to use to get their nitrogen. So nitrogen is going to be pulled out of the soil in the form of nitrates by, once again, one of the more important organisms, types of organisms on our planet. So I'm going to draw here a little flower. Okay, so producers, once again, play a huge role in movement of matter through the ecosystem. So plants are going to uptake nitrates. Plants can't grow unless there's enough nitrates in the soil, enough nitrogen in the soil. In fact, this is such a huge problem that throughout history, when farmers have grown their crops in the same place over and over and over again, the plants have used up the nitrogen available in the soil, and as a result of that, they can't grow in that area anymore. And so what they started doing was actually crop rotations, where if a farmer has their land, they'll grow their plants on one section of the land for a certain period of time, and then they'll switch and they'll grow on the other section and let this plot go through nitrogen fixation and nitrification in order to replace the nitrogen that's been used up by the plants that were growing there before. So we call that crop rotation, and it makes sure that the plants have plenty of nitrogen available. So one way you could tell soil is poor is if you try to plant stuff and plants can't grow there. That means there's probably not enough nitrogen in the ground. That could be one of the many problems. But nitrogen is definitely a limiting factor, that plants can't grow in an area without enough nitrogen in the soil. So they uptake nitrates. Now nitrogen becomes incorporated into their bodies. The nitrogen can be passed along to heterotrophs once again. So this looks very similar to the carbon cycle. Okay, so it passes on to heterotrophs, and then heterotrophs can release waste. So I'm just going to put an arrow down here. So waste in the form of ammonia. And then the nitrifying bacteria can take that and start the process again. Okay, so this is a major way that nitrogen gets passed around in an environment and an ecosystem. Plus a lot of that, when waste is released, it can be released up into the atmosphere as well in the form of nitrogen gas. As it breaks down, as ammonia breaks down, you can get nitrogen gas. Now, other ways that nitrogen moves around in an ecosystem, a major one that is actually causing problems is through the form of, excuse me for my tractor here, okay, excess amounts of nitrogen being put into the soil in farmlands. So fertilizers contain lots of nitrates that get added, so that way plants can uptake a lot of nitrogen for growing. And putting excess nitrates into the soil might sound like it's a good thing, but it's been causing lots of problems. So all these nitrates being put into the soil can get washed off into rivers, lakes, streams, and actually cause things like algae blooms and stuff like that. So it causes additional problems that a lot of people didn't take into consideration. Now, why is nitrogen important? Okay, so nitrogen is necessary for living things in order to make proteins and DNA, or nucleic acids. Okay, so these two things cannot be made without nitrogen being present.